Hello. Uh, Back with a little bit more regarding the devil one, Sympathy for the Devil this time. So if you hadn't watched the previous one, it's probably up there, which means I'm gonna have to learn how to do that, but we'll get there. Um, so I did find well, I didn't really find it, but there is um, the tarot Rider Waite tarot kind of thing with them, and I don't know if it's in focus or not, but nonetheless, it's clearly not in focus. There it goes. But what was interesting is you can kind of see they could take the chains off at any time. What was interesting is it was anchored to a block, which I didn't remember. I thought he was holding it for some reason, but anyway, yeah, I like my story better when he holds the block, when he holds the chain, and then it's like, yeah, the stories I tell myself, I tell myself, that's something. Right. So I'm both devil and the victim. Um, and so, but where does kindness and compassion kind of come into that? And I think I touched on that some last time, but this one's a little bit more, I don't know, as it sort of appears to me in that what kind of comes to mind, and um, it's there was a friend I used to play games with kind of thing, and again, this isn't. I guess what I'm trying to kind of emphasize is this isn't something where it has to be this save humanity or save someone's life or the rest of that, but it's kind of all in these little things of just um, if I can if I can sort of experience that pain in myself, if I can identify the, I don't know, I can notice those stories, and as I heal myself, I'm able to heal others, not by like I'm going to heal you kind of thing, healing fingers, whatever, but but more of the I'm able to show up when you need me to show up, and or I just want to show up kind of thing, if nothing else. And I don't know, the story that kind of comes to mind for me is had a gaming group for a while, played D&D, and it was great before COVID stuff in person and whatnot. And one woman was there, and yeah, I had a crush on her, and it all right, yeah, right, that's distracting, right? But it was one of these things of whoever she was dating, the rest of that was having a party at her house, and I almost had the impression that was someone who, was um, I hesitate to say who people are because I don't know, but um, there's we all kind of struggle in our own ways, and there's kind of a part of that where um, it seemed important to kind of show up for her at a party where someone she really liked, someone she was dating and was like, really into him, that was going to be there, and it just kind of felt to me like we were sort of, I don't know, the normal people or the people she kind of wanted to show off kind of thing, and it was important that we go, but none of us went, and where I was at the time was, not only was I into her, but part of that was the social anxiety was way too much. It was just not going to happen for me, kind of thing. In that, a lot of people I don't know, and just the all the emotion and stuff of it was just no, not going. And I guess not too long after, I guess they ended up breaking up. She never knew why. The rest of that, and then she ended up ghosting us and going somewhere else. And I always kind of wonder back to that because there's a part of it where, not to be like you need to be a good guy or the rest of that kind of thing, but there's a part of it where um, I've always been hard on myself, where it's like you need to be able to show up and do this and be a part of what, and not have that anxiety kind of thing, so to speak. And that was just one more example of what's wrong with you. And I guess kind of in my own journey, a part of it has kind of been in finding kindness for myself, because really that part of me saying, basically, you suck, the devil card kind of thing, right? And then the other part of me receiving that, the people with the chains on kind of thing, it's like, yeah, I know, and it'll never be, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, okay, here's a internal relationship, right? That internal dysfunctional relationship, right? And so it kind of, until I could begin to actually not face my demons as like face them down, but more just kind of come to acknowledge and accept that, yeah, they're there, and yeah, I have those feelings, and yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Was kind of that thing where suddenly, demons and devils don't show up in the same way, and that anxiety, goes down a whole lot. Not initially. That's the video with the dancing and the bowl of anxiety. Um, I hope I addressed that in there. I ramble. God, I ramble. It's just going to be what's going to be. Right. You want good thumbnails, you want good keywords. Nope, not going to happen. Oh, yeah, right. And by the way, if you're new here, I'm Christopher. And if you came looking for answers, I'm sorry, you ain't going to get them. I don't offer answers. Get that from everybody else. So in the process of kind of that anxiety kind of coming down and sort of acknowledging those demons, what I began to find is I began to find kindness for my past moments where instead of saying you should have been and that should have been, I began to find kindness for myself in that there's no way. There is no way it could have been any different. And, whether we hurt her or future or the rest of that, it's like, yeah, it could not have been any different. And it's not about it being intentional. It's about, whatever whatever damage I'm working through kind of thing in that moment, or not working through, just can't have it any other way. It's okay. And this is kind of where, as the phrase goes, show me what's not medicine in the world. Because the thing is all, whatever that is, that's kind of broken. And I guess this is where there's a part of this that, as I see it, the devil's both this, just unbearably terrible thing, while simultaneously being this something exquisite, exquisitely, I don't want to quite call it beautiful, but there is beauty that emerges from it, because, well, obviously the terrible side, but the beautiful part is, to me at least, like Dante's Inferno, which, I guess, full disclosure, I say that, but I really read Larry Niven's Inferno, which is, I guess, if a science fiction writer goes to hell. I'm assuming it's basically the same, which is, I'm sure, an affront to some people. Just let me tell you, you can't deal with it. But, spoiler alert, the exit from hell is through, all the way to the bottom, 10th circle, the center of the 10th circle. That's your exit. And And in the process of doing that, I don't know, for me at least, um, is in experiencing my own demons and devils and noticing that and noticing just how, I am my own torturer and the rest of that. I really find, uh, not only, firstly, I begin to find kindness for myself in the past of like, oh, yeah, I couldn't have been different because, like sitting in the airport once, looking out the window, watching people go by, families and vans, and some of them looked like super happy. And I'm, sort of jealous about wanting to feel like that, but some of them look kind of like the kid doesn't really want to be there. It's like, oh, yeah, I sort of feel like trying to do the right thing, and it's not always bad, but it's just one of those. What does that mean to be you in that moment? And then somebody's there, and in their sports car, and cute girlfriend, and whatnot. And it's like, oh yeah, that could have been you. It's like, really? And it's kind of like, well, if I had made these decisions or done that or been different and I started in really indulging that. This is kind of where indulgences are can be useful. Show me what's not medicine, right? And indulging that, it's like, well, and going through that whole, if had I been and had I done and had I made these choices and not flunked out of college and not, and all these other sorts of things, it's kind of, I didn't even recognize who that was. By the time I got just a little ways into it, it was such a ridiculously fictional character that I didn't recognize. I couldn't even continue because it's like, that's not, there's nothing even remotely this, I can't relate to that at all. It's just, I don't know, something else now. It's like, oh, yeah. And that's kind of where that kindness began to come from. It's like, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, again, as this phrase goes, just kind of have your life. It couldn't have been any different. I couldn't have been different or better or the rest of it. It's like given my experiences and who I was and what, what I had worked through and not worked through at that point in time. It was that. Inevitably, she was going to ghost us. What I suspect, she wasn't happy with us, the rest of that. Like, yeah, okay. Were we good friends? No, I don't think we were. And in finding that kindness for myself of like, yeah, I couldn't have been any different. That leads to, for me at least, then continues to transform into compassion in the sense that, oh yeah, if I can find kindness for myself, I can be compassionate for that version of me that can do hurtful things, and that's a rather benign example in the big scheme of things. But, we say that, but we really don't know how we hurt people and what sticks around for years and what doesn't. And all kind of part of this exploration of, not knowing. And so, I don't know. I don't really know how much it mattered or not, because the way she was talking leading up to that might have been the one, and I don't know what that would feel like to lose that. I never had that experience. And so so it's not that in experiencing some of my own demons and devils and whatnot and finding that kindness for myself of being unable to be anything else in that, in that moment, and whoever I was, although trying to work through it, trying to figure shit out, but it's just like, do what you can, It doesn't mean that I understand everybody's, fate either. There are a lot of ways people get hurt, and people just can't hold that particular pain, because it's I think in kind of evolving and transforming through some of this, it is possible to be in the moment with someone in their pain. And the only way I can connect or relate, but I can still be in that moment of someone hurting, and hold that. But that's not quite the same thing as like truly knowing, um, not their pain necessarily, but in having a greater connection or commonality with them in that experience. I think that's a deeper connection. And that's where I bring it back to the devil as this exquisite aspect of oneself, the beauty in that pain, in that. Um, that's your unique experience. That if you can transform that in yourself, to find that kindness in yourself, to find that um, compassion for that torture that I think happens well after the fact for mm, might be your whole life. Um, the body remembers. Um, it's it's one of those sorts of things where to transform that and not necessarily put it on offer to the world, but to have transformed that and connect to people and to help you use that as a means of connection, as a means of humanity, to help others that are struggling through that. That's the beauty of that. That's the beauty of that's the guide in Dante's Inferno. That's the one who's been to the 10th circle, the center of the 10th circle, but has not gone down through himself. And that is not only the way out is through, but I guess the way it kind of feels to me is that same thing is the very conduit that connects us to compassion, not only for ourselves, but for that in others. And so rather than condemning and putting out there and pointing the finger and adding to the hurt, it kind of becomes, yeah, maybe I don't know exactly what you've experienced, but from my experience and from the demons I've, I don't know, allowed to sort of taken the time to experience all that emotion and roller coaster ride, to sit with those, um, and continue farther and farther and farther down. And this is kind of where um, I sort of started this with like, well, the narratives, and all those stories, and it's better to just not know. It's like, well, in a way, that's a story itself too. Um, so even the delusions, even even taking the ride on those stories, again, show me what's not medicine. Um, that's it too. But that reminds me of, it's like asking the question, how do you travel from the East Coast to the West Coast? Well, you go west. It's like, well, sounds obvious, but it doesn't work like that. You don't always go west. Sometimes you go north. Sometimes you even have to go back east, kind of thing. If depending on how the roads go, how the mountains, block your passage, maybe roads closed due to flooding. I mean, there's any number of reasons why you don't continue with this idea of forward progress. And that's, that's life too. It's, and Sometimes, in the process of navigating, we get to certain neighborhoods, and maybe there's a dead end sign there, and sometimes we insist. It's like, oh no, no, no! Based on how things look, I know that's not a dead end. It must be lying to me, and I ignore it and go down all those paths and insist and insist and insist upon that it has to be this way. And that's it too. I don't have to stop you from doing that. I don't have to fight with myself over it either. And what, sometimes we find is we find ourselves right back at that same intersection again. Time has passed, and okay, here's another go at it. Do you think that's the way through? And sometimes we dive right back in again, whether it's, I don't know, toxic experiences, or insisting on being right about something, or I don't know. I'm sure you've got your own version of that, and it's like, if you want to keep driving through the same dead end neighborhood, you can. But that's it too. So it's, I don't mean to imply it's like, here's the straight path and here's this and you go through here, and it's all done. I mean, I don't know, good work if you can get it, I guess, but it hasn't been my experience. So especially, right, given the theme of this channel, it's like, what is that? I don't know. I'm not going to simplify anything for you, because that just hasn't been my experience of it. But it's, I guess that's just something I really wanted to emphasize, because the last episode got kind of long, and I'm not really sure how much I talked about that. But it's, to me, I guess it's not about eliminating anything, but kind of in, the enter here. That's that's I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say it has to be forward or it has to be positive progress, and I don't really want to put a judgment on it. But it's just like, for things to move, that's a way for things to move. And to put those labels on it of this terrible thing, it's like, well, yeah, it can hurt. And it can hurt more than anything you can imagine. But in transforming that becomes, and not transforming it in terms of I'm going to force it to be whatever, but, again, to kind of emphasize that 10th circle of hell thing, it's like to wander through all of it and to have all of it, in your mind, not the actual pain that actually happens, kind of thing. I'm not saying, trust, bad. I'm not at all saying to ignore your intuition and intentionally go into bad situations and the rest of it. But I'm getting more at, of the things that have happened, that when you find yourself in a quiet room or in a truly benign situation, with the mind going off about all the terrible things that could happen and the rest of it, and then all the reasons of here's why you're broken, about that, to me, is the form of, the devil and victims that's in that card. And that's the place where, for me, to really sit with that, kind of like, all right, well, what happened? What happened? What happened? And what are those feelings and those feelings? And then sometimes all that turns into rage, and that rage turns into, and yeah, I told those stories in the last episode. But eventually, and hence why, it's more of a book rather than a, couple page, whatever, years, decades, whatever that is. Excuse me. That That's a conduit for kindness and compassion, not only for yourself, but for others. So, I don't think I'll end it there. You are more powerful than you can possibly imagine. You got this, right? You are worthy of love. Good night.